There is a weight we all carry, an invisible burden that settles deep within us, often disguised as love or simply as habit. This weight is attachment. It's not just about missing someone. It's about clinging to the way things were, clinging to the future we desperately imagined, and clinging to the narrative we have built around another person or a situation. When we are attached, we become tethered. Our awareness narrows, focusing intensely on the object of our attachment, creating a constant internal tension. Imagine holding a stone in your hand. Feels heavy, doesn't it? If you try to move it, you expend energy fighting its weight. Attachment is that stone. It's the story we tell ourselves about what we deserve, what we need, and what must happen next. This attachment creates mental clutter. It fills the quiet spaces of our minds with echoes, replays of past conversations, imagined scenarios, and relentless worry about where things might go wrong. This mental noise prevents us from finding true rest because our mind is constantly scanning the horizon for the thing we are attached to, waiting for it to change or confirm our fears. Keeps us awake, even when our body is still. We often mistake this heavy feeling for deep emotion, but it is primarily a friction in our awareness. It is the resistance that arises when reality doesn't match our deeply held expectations. When we are attached, we are tethered to a story that exists only in our mind, and that story demands constant attention. We live inside the shadow of what might have been, or fear what might be. The gentle art of letting go begins not with dramatic action, but with simply noticing this weight. It starts when you allow yourself to sit with the discomfort of that heaviness without immediately trying to fix it or push it away. Allow the feeling of attachment to be present, like a cloud passing across the sky. You don't need to judge it, you just need to observe it. Recognizing this weight is the first step toward releasing it. It is acknowledging that the story we are carrying, the one about dependency, the one about loss, the one about perpetual need, is not necessarily the complete truth of our experience. It is a narrative we have adopted, a way we have learned to cope with vulnerability and change. When you begin to observe this weight, you start to create a small space between yourself and the story. You move from being completely submerged in the feeling to simply being the container for the feeling. This shift creates a subtle distance. It allows us to see that while the feelings are real, the grip we have on them is something we can choose to soften. Attachment is powerful because it promises security, the promise that if we hold on tight enough, the pain will stop. But true peace does not come from holding tighter. It comes from realizing that our inner stability resides not in controlling external circumstances, but in mastering our internal response to them. As you settle deeper into this quiet space, let this observation be your anchor. Feel the weight settling, not as a burden to be fought, but as a temporary presence to be witnessed. In this moment of gentle recognition, we begin the process of softening the edges of that heavy story. We are simply observing the attachment, and in that simple act of awareness, we create the first opening toward true rest. As you settle deeper into this quiet space, let the observation of that weight remain your anchor. We are not trying to push the story away right now. We are simply watching it. The story we carry, the narrative of our relationships, the patterns of hurt and longing, the expectations we hold for ourselves and others, is not just a collection of memories. It is an active mental script. It is the way we interpret every silence, every glance, and every interaction that shapes our present feeling. It lives in the space between our thoughts, whispering assumptions about who we are and what we deserve. Recognizing this story is the first gentle step toward release. It means seeing that the feelings we experience are not just random waves of emotion. They are echoes of a deeply held narrative. Think of it like an old film reel playing silently in your mind, running on repeat. A familiar scene of disappointment, fear, or unmet need. We often mistake the current pain for the entire movie. We become completely immersed in the plot, believing that this sequence of events defines our reality. When we carry these stories, they create mental clutter. They pull energy away from the present moment and trap us in the past or project us into an anxious future. This internal noise is what prevents true rest. Keeps the mind running on high alert, reviewing old scripts instead of allowing itself to simply be still. To recognize the story is to start creating a small, necessary space between yourself and that narrative. You are no longer completely submerged in the feeling. You become the container for the feeling. Imagine sitting beside that heavy story, not fighting it or judging it, but simply witnessing its presence. You see the characters, the dialogue, and the setting, but you realize you are the observer, not the participant. This shift is subtle but profound. It moves us from being completely entangled in the emotion to understanding that the emotion is something we are experiencing within ourselves, rather than something that defines our external existence. The story still exists, but it is no longer the entire landscape of your life. We can begin to recognize specific types of stories. There is the story of unworthiness, the subtle internal narrative that suggests we are not enough, or that we must struggle for approval to be seen. There is the story of expected roles, the script dictating how we should behave in certain relationships, and the deep frustration when reality deviates from that expectation. There is the story of wound and repair, the cycle of pain followed by a desperate attempt to fix it, which often just reopens the initial wound. When you notice these stories playing out, try simply naming them internally. You might think, this is the story of fear, or this is the story of needing control. This simple act of labeling separates the feeling from the fact. It allows us to see that we are not the story. We are the consciousness that perceives the story. By recognizing the narrative as a construct, as a learned pattern rather than an absolute truth, we begin to realize that it is flexible. It is a tool we used for coping, not a rigid law of nature. This recognition is gentle because it requires no immediate action, only awareness. It is simply the quiet understanding that there is freedom in observing the story unfold without needing to immediately follow its demands. As you continue to rest now, allow this realization to settle deep within you. You are safe in the present moment. The weight of the past and the projections of the future can wait. For tonight, we simply observe the story, and in that quiet observation, we create space for true, undisturbed peace. Let the mind soften, let the clutter subside, and allow yourself to drift into deep, restorative rest. When we have observed these stories, the patterns of attachment and need, we now turn our attention to a gentle, practical way of living within that space. This is where the concept of setting boundaries enters, not as a defensive shield against others, but as an act of profound self-compassion. Boundaries are not walls built to keep people out. They are the gentle lines we draw around ourselves to protect our inner peace and honor our own energy. They are simply the recognition that our time, our attention, and our emotional capacity are precious resources that must be respected. When we attach too tightly to other people or situations, we often allow them to consume us, blurring the lines of who we are and what we need. Setting a boundary is the quiet, compassionate decision to reclaim that space for ourselves. This process requires softening the harshness of old habits. It means shifting from reactive defense, where we push back out of fear or anger, to proactive clarity, rooted in genuine kindness toward our own experience. Imagine your emotional life as a garden. When we allow attachments to take root unchecked, the weeds of anxiety and obligation choke the healthy growth. Setting a boundary is weeding. It is choosing what deserves sunlight and nurturing, and what needs quiet space to simply exist. How do we practice this self-compassion in the moment? It starts with listening deeply to the subtle signals within you. Notice when a request or an expectation feels heavy, pulling against your natural ease. Instead of immediately reacting with guilt or frustration, pause. Take a slow breath and ask yourself, does this align with my current capacity? Does this honor my need for rest? When we communicate these needs, we do so gently. We don't need dramatic declarations. We simply need clarity. For example, instead of withdrawing silently out of exhaustion, you can articulate your reality with kindness. You might say, I need some time to process this, or I am unable to take on that responsibility right now. These are not demands. They are honest statements of your current state. They allow the other person to see your truth without requiring you to justify your feelings, and they allow you to protect yourself without feeling like you are inflicting pain. This is a practice of internalizing compassion. If you find yourself struggling to establish a boundary, recognize that the difficulty often stems from an old fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of conflict, or the fear of being alone. When that fear arises, treat it with the same tenderness you would offer a dear friend. Acknowledge the fear, see it as a protective instinct trying to keep you safe, and then gently remind yourself that you are worthy of safety and peace. Setting boundaries is not a punishment for others. It is an act of self-respect. It affirms your inherent worth and reminds you that your well-being is the most important priority. When you allow yourself to create these gentle separations, you stop letting external forces dictate your internal experience. You begin to inhabit your own space fully, allowing yourself to breathe in spaciousness. As you settle deeper into this quiet space now, let this realization guide you. Allow the clarity of setting boundaries to become a soft echo in your mind. Know that you possess the innate wisdom to care for yourself. You are capable of creating the space you need, not through force, but through gentle, unwavering self-compassion. Let the tension ease from your shoulders. Let the weight of obligation soften. Rest now, knowing that you are safe, you are worthy, and you have the power to create a life defined by gentle, intentional peace. Drift now into deep, undisturbed rest. We have talked about recognizing the weight of our attachments and learning how to set boundaries as an act of self-compassion. Now, we move into the core practice, the gentle art of detachment. This is not about erasing feelings or pretending that nothing matters. It is about changing your relationship with those feelings, allowing them to pass through you without clinging, without letting them define your present moment. Detachment is not a cold, empty state. It is simply recognizing reality as it is, impermanent and flowing. Think of attachment as a rope we tie around an experience, pulling tightly against the flow of life, trying to hold onto something that is constantly shifting. When we are attached, we believe that if we hold on tightly enough, the thing we are attached to will stay fixed. But everything flows. Everything changes. The practice of detachment begins when you notice the mental clutter, the stories, the expectations, the lingering echoes of past connections that still swirl beneath the surface of your awareness. When a thought arises about a person or a situation, rather than immediately engaging with it or trying to fix it, pause. Just observe it. See it as a cloud passing across the sky. A thought is just energy moving through the mind. It is not you, and it is not necessarily a command you must obey. Imagine your mind as a vast, quiet landscape. When we are attached, we treat that landscape like a battlefield where we must constantly fight to keep things in place. Detachment is learning to step back from the fray. It means acknowledging the story we carry, the narrative we created about a relationship or an ending, and seeing it for what it is, a story woven by memory and fear, not necessarily by present reality. When you practice this gentle letting go, you are not abandoning anything. You are simply releasing the grip of resistance. You allow the emotion to exist, acknowledge its presence, and then let it soften, like mist evaporating in the morning sun. You stop trying to control the outcome or force a specific feeling into existence. Instead, you simply witness your own experience with kindness and neutrality. This practice creates space. It opens up an inner room that was previously filled with tension and obligation. When you detach from the need for certain outcomes or the need for external validation regarding those relationships, you free up tremendous mental energy. This is where true rest resides. You stop using your awareness to constantly manage external forces and start allowing yourself to inhabit your own internal peace. Detachment allows you to observe the attachment without becoming consumed by it. It shifts your focus from what you lack or what was lost to the simple, steady reality of the present moment. This is not an effort to become indifferent. It is an act of profound self-care. It is realizing that your true stability does not depend on the presence or absence of others, but on the unshakable peace within yourself. As you settle into this state of spaciousness now, allow those lingering mental echoes to dissolve like smoke. Release the need to hold on. Rest in the open space that exists just behind the thoughts. You are worthy of this freedom. You have created the space. Now simply inhabit it. Drift gently into deep, undisturbed rest. We have established that detachment allows us to observe attachment without being consumed by it. We found the space within ourselves. Now we arrive at the final stage of this process, releasing the lingering echoes. When we create that inner room, that spaciousness, we are no longer burdened by the immediate demands of the relationship or the pain of its ending. But sometimes, even in a space of profound peace, there are faint sounds, lingering echoes that refuse to fully fade. These echoes are not always loud memories. They are often subtle residues. A fleeting thought about what might have been, a familiar physical tension held in the chest, or an automatic emotional reaction triggered by a familiar name or situation. They are the residual vibrations of the attachment we once carried. The mistake is trying to push these echoes away forcefully. Resistance only creates more energy, more friction, and more internal noise. Instead, we approach them with gentle curiosity. We acknowledge them simply as present moments, recognizing them for what they are. Sounds in the mind, sensations in the body. This is not judgment. It is pure observation. Imagine these echoes as smoke drifting across a calm, clear window pane. You don't need to grab hold of the smoke or try to extinguish it with force. You simply watch it move. Notice the shape of the memory, feel the texture of the emotion. Perhaps a touch of sadness, perhaps a flicker of regret, and allow that sensation to be there without needing to engage with it or replay it. This act of allowing is the true work of release. It means giving permission for the emotional residue to dissolve naturally, using the quiet space we have cultivated. We are not erasing the past. We are simply letting go of the grip the past has on our present moment. The echo reminds us of a story that once played out, but it does not dictate the music we are playing right now. Think about your breath. With each inhale, allow the tension in your shoulders to soften slightly. With each exhale, invite the lingering thought or feeling to gently drift away, like smoke carried by an unseen current. You are simply letting go of the need to hold onto that story, that history, that emotional weight. This is not passive indifference. It is active compassion. It is acknowledging the difficulty of what has been, and then offering yourself the kindness required to let it rest. You don't need to solve anything right now. You don't need to fix anything. Your only job is to be the gentle container for these feelings as they pass through you. As these echoes fade into silence, notice the profound stillness that settles in their place. This space is not empty. It is rich and open. It is a quiet sanctuary where old burdens no longer have power. You are realizing that your stability was never dependent on external circumstances or other people's presence, but resided within this deep, unshakable core of self. Now, allow yourself to rest completely in this open space. There is nothing left to hold on to. There is only the quiet, the peace, and the profound, undisturbed stillness of your own being. Drift now into a deep, restorative sleep. You are free. Welcome back to this quiet space. We have spent time acknowledging the weight we carry, recognizing the stories that bind us, and learning how to create gentle boundaries. Now we arrive at the practice of resting in open space, the profound stillness that follows the release of those burdens. This is not merely a pause between activities. It is an invitation to inhabit a state of being where you are no longer defined by what you have lost or what you are waiting for. Think of this open space as a vast, unmarred sky. It is limitless. When we allow the mental clutter, the echoes of past relationships, the anxieties of future expectations, to settle, that space opens up. It becomes an expanse where there is no need to rush, no need to analyze, and most importantly, no need to hold on. The trick to resting in this space is to stop trying to fill it. We often perceive emptiness as a void that needs to be immediately filled with distraction or new goals. But true openness is not about filling. It is about allowing. Imagine the mental noise you usually carry, the constant internal commentary, the looping memories, the subtle anxiety humming beneath the surface, as clouds moving across a blue expanse. You don't need to chase them away, nor do you need to fight them. You simply observe them as they drift by. This is the practice of non-attachment in action. When a thought arises about an old connection, or a feeling of sadness surfaces, notice it. Do not judge it, and do not engage with the story it tries to tell you. Simply acknowledge its presence. Ah, there is the memory of that time, or there is a wave of longing, and then gently let it pass, like smoke carried by an unseen current. You are the observer, sitting calmly on the shore, watching the tide come in and go out, without becoming swept away by the water itself. Resting in this open space means realizing that your sense of self is not tethered to external relationships or their outcomes. Your stability is not dependent on whether someone stays or goes, or on the approval of others. It resides within the core of your awareness, deep and unshakable. When you allow these old attachments to dissolve, you are remembering this truth. You are inherently whole, regardless of what circumstances surround you. This stillness is profoundly powerful because it is free from the demands of narrative. The mind often struggles when it tries to manage multiple conflicting stories simultaneously. By resting in open space, we give our minds permission to stop managing and simply be. This cessation of mental effort is what allows true deep rest to enter your body. It is a physical surrender that mirrors a mental release. As you drift towards sleep tonight, allow this spaciousness to envelop you. Imagine yourself floating effortlessly, suspended in the quiet. Let go of the need to analyze or resolve. Let go of the expectation that everything must make sense right now. Allow the silence to be your companion. Feel the deep, gentle ease of knowing that you are safe, that you are held, and that there is nothing left for you to hold on to. Let the soft edges of your awareness soften further. Every breath becomes an invitation to expand this space, breathing in calm and breathing out any remaining tension or lingering thought. Let the memories become soft shadows on the wall, not sharp images demanding attention. Allow the quiet to settle into every corner of your mind, creating a sanctuary where only peace remains. You are simply resting now. You are free from the weight of history, free from the demands of expectation, and free to simply exist in this beautiful open space. Drift now deeply and completely into restorative sleep. Rest is not something you earn. It is something you simply allow yourself to be. Sleep well.